Good, we're go. Yo, what it do, man? It's your boy Don Rio, and we are back here at Low Life TV, man, with a very special guest. We're doing it a lot differently here today. We got my guy Chris, man. Can you give the people here a little description of who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Chris Moyer. I own a few different businesses in the area. So my wife and I own Moyer Properties. We own 38 rental property units in and around Northeast Arkansas. We also own a 34-unit apartment complex in Searcy, Arkansas, so just about an hour from here. And we also own two bowling centers in Wichita, Kansas.
Man, so look, we was kind of talking a little. Me and Chris was talking a little bit before we was getting all this sound set up and stuff. And Jeff stressed me out, making me think the camera was dead. But so I just want to know how'd you get started in all this? What was the very beginning stages of this adventure for you?
Yeah, so I used to be the general manager of the bowling center up in Paragould, Arkansas before it caught fire back in July of 2016. So
I actually remember that. That's crazy. I
yes.
graduated in 2014.
Okay, yeah. So I was the GM there from October of 11 through July of 2016. And the owner of that facility's name was John Bland. And he was and still is an awesome entrepreneur. Owned the bowling center. Used to own the Dr. Pepper distribution center or area like around Arkansas and Mississippi. He owned a couple of water parks in Dallas, and he also did a bunch of house flipping and building in the Dallas, Texas area. So he was just an awesome entrepreneur and all that. And every time, we'd sit in a meeting and talk about the bowling center and all that, I'd hear about, everything else that he's doing with all these different houses and all these different other adventures and how they're going and all that. And, at the time, I didn't have 5 pennies to my name, and I just, there was no way I was doing what he was doing at the time. But as I, slowly moved into another position, increased my income a little bit, I always kind of thought back to him and what he was doing with real estate and multiple businesses and all that. And I was like, man, I got to find a way to get into this. And in 2019, my wife and I finally got married, and within a month of being married, we got under contract for our first house, our first rental property, and we closed on it before the end of the year. And then, just started from there. COVID did not do much. Wasn't really sure what was going to happen through COVID. We were all kind of nervous about that.
How did it go for you? Was it?
Honestly, between, my W-2 job, which I work for a bowling supply company, kept us on, and I'm super grateful for that, because
while owning things, you still work a regular 9 to 5 job?
Yeah, full-time job, yeah.
How often have you thought about leaving that full-time job?
I don't see myself being there for 15 or 20 years, but I love what I do. I love working with customers. I love working at other bowling centers. I like helping them out with their business. Again, being a business guy, and you want to see other people strive, and you want to see other people be successful. So when I'm working with other bowling centers, I want them to be successful too. So, I'll help them out, not just with, obviously I have a goal of selling our product.
Yes.
But I want them to be successful, make more money so they can buy more stuff from us. So we'll work with them through business operations, look at their P&L reports, just help them out like any way possible, because being somebody who has been in the bowling industry a long time, I want to see every center that's, possible to survive and do well and business do well. So that job gives me that opportunity. So I plan on really keeping that long term.
That's awesome, man. That's actually a great way to want to keep great reason to want to keep a job. You know what I mean? But now, no disrespect by this, but why bowling? What's the reason to bowling?
So how I got into bowling was I was 5 years old, 5 years old, and I went to a birthday party for a kid that I knew. And obviously, back then the only way some other kid is because they were, our parents were friends and all that.
Yeah.
And apparently, I don't remember the birthday party or anything that happened around it, but I was told I came home and did nothing but talk about this thing the entire time for like months. Like all that I did was bug my parents and ask, hey, can we go bowling next time? Can we do this?
Crazy.
Can we do that? And That next August, a couple months later, my parents put me in a bowling league, and that would have been 1993, and been in bowling in some form or fashion ever since. I went to college.
That's a long time in bowling.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I went to college on bowling scholarship.
What college you go to?
Saginaw Valley State University,
Heck yeah.
so in Michigan. Went there for a bowling scholarship. Ran a couple of different pro shops where you actually drilled the equipment for people and all. Managed the center up in Paragould. Ended up owning the pro shop inside of Hijinks here in town.
Heck yeah,
for
my
4
kids
years.
love some hijinks.
Yeah. Then they do great. Awesome center. Great customer of mine as well. So, yeah, I mean, and I've just been in it ever since, and I haven't, definitely haven't stepped away from it for even a day since 1993.
Now, I heard you say you were married.
Yes.
So, did you and your wife know that this is what y'all wanted to do when y'all got together? How long was y'all together before marriage?
5 years.
Did y'all talk about things like this? Did you share these kind of thoughts with her all the time? Like, this is really what I want to do. I want to, like, because you said that like you had remembered working with a certain individual who kind of inspired you.
Mm-hmm.
Was you always like that? Did you let her know that the whole time? So.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say from, I definitely didn't know it when I moved here in 2011. I definitely did not know that I had that inside me.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like...
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't. It takes other people to inspire you a lot of times. I would tell you, when you start talking to most entrepreneurs and successful people, they're inspired by somebody else first. And it's always been inside them. And it's inside a lot of people, but if you're not inspired, if you don't get around the right people, you'll never open that up. And getting in front of the right people, like being around John, really opened that up. Then moving into my job, like Cubic AMF, ended up being my best friend. Jesse was super inspirational for me. Then, now I'm in a few different masterminds for like real estate and all that. And, being around those people open you up to new experiences and bring more out of you. So, continually being around those right people. But, going back, a little bit, to when my wife met and all that, our goal back in 2015 and 16 was just to buy that bowling center in Paragould. We knew John didn't really want it long term. It was a small deal compared to...
See, I love stories like that. When it didn't start out as doing what you're doing right now, owning properties, just, and then I don't know. So I guess it started out with wanting to buy the bowling center.
Yeah, it started out with wanting to buy the business that we managed 100 hours a week. And obviously that burned to the ground, and we had no chance of doing that, and kind of sat on the sidelines a few years waiting for a new opportunity, a new way. Things just you get around the right people, you make the right you kind of play the chess game of life the right way. And good things happen.
That's great, man. Look, because like I said, when we first got here, today's been a rough day for me. But I will say, Jeff included, shout out to my guy Spider, shout out to Capone. I've just had these people around me today that's just been like, bro, you gotta shake that off. You just gotta shake that off and shut up and keep going, and stuff like that. And I will say that probably a year and a half ago, I really started to take this side of my business really serious. And I will say that. I mean, like I said, I'm not no professional, but my life has really changed since I put myself around the right people. Mm-hmm. So, Chris, what is your definition of entrepreneurship?
Doing what you love doing every day, and it doesn't feel like a job. And that's, even though I work for another company, when I wake up at 5:30 in the morning, I don't feel like I work a day in my life. And that's the...
How many hours you think you work a week, Chris?
Ooh, it's more than I want to admit. It's more than I want to admit. I mean, on the average day, I'm up and at it between 5 and 5:30, grabbing some coffee, getting the day started. I'm on my computer before the kids wake up at 6:15. And, right now through kind of this growth period, to where we're doing a bunch of different stuff, just bought the bowling centers, working a full-time job and all this and that. And I mean, it's 8:30 before I'm off the computer and off doing it. So what's the math on that? That's a lot. That's about a 15-hour day. And that day is 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. My Saturdays, like last Saturday, woke up at 5, got home at 8.
So the money has not ever kept you involved.
No, it's not. If you're working for the money, you're gonna last 18 months and fry out. It's obviously we all work because you need money to be able to do things that you want to do,
Yeah.
and really gain that freedom and that time freedom and be able to do the things you want, because at the end of the day, everything that you want to do, all of us, involves some sort of having money.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
whether it's travel, whether it's a sweet car,
Anything.
you just need money. So but the money can't be the main reason. It's got to be like a true passion for what you want to do. And I truly have a passion, and I love the real estate stuff. And and you don't have to love every single aspect of it.
Yeah.
I don't love changing a toilet every once in a while. Like, that's why I got Jeff.
Yeah.
I don't love doing some of that stuff. I don't love doing financials. Like that stuff's just boring to me. But that's part of the job. But the overall scope, the overall investing strategy, meeting investors, helping people change their lives that way, the bowling center stuff, the stuff with Cubing AMF, my job, like all that, I truly love. And, when I go on the road for any of it, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like fun. And that's a big thing.
That's crazy, man. That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So, Chris, how often, and you can be real, I mean, how often do you really just sit back and be like, man, I'm tired. Like, I'm just exhausted.
Ooh, yeah. There's some nights. My wife's got some pictures of me at 8:00 at night, just snoozing on the couch, man. Man, I tell you what, she'll send me a photo. I'll wake up at like 10 or 15 minutes later, and I'll look at her and be like, "You took a picture of me, didn't you?" Because she's over there like smirking and all, and I'm like, "Oh God," So I mean, is it tiring? Hell yeah, absolutely. But that's doing what you love will give you enough energy to keep going, and that's definitely where I'm at. I want to create I got a big goal board. Jeff's seen it at the house. I got a big goal board with
So you set goals. You set goals. That's important to you.
Yes, and we can dive into that to a minute if we want. But I have a lot of a lot of big goals that I want to hit, and they require money, but they also include like time freedom to be able to buy back, some of that time that we have on Earth. Because the one thing that you only have so much amount of time. There's technically an infinite amount of dollars.
Yeah.
But there is no infinite amount of time. So at some point, as an entrepreneur and business person, you want to start like buying back your time, and having people do tasks and things for you that you don't have to do anymore. And that's where true, happiness, I think, comes, is where you can just, I don't want to do that anymore. I can pay somebody to do that, or somebody else can do that.
Man.
And that's where it really needs to be. And by no means am I there yet, because I'm working 15 hours a day.
Yeah.
But that's where the end goal is to where, I still want to work all the time. I still love what I do. But I don't want to hustle 100 hours a week forever, because it's just not possible long term. But for short term, for now, I'm definitely willing to do that. Yeah.
Heck yeah. So as far as real estate, do you do it all when it comes to real estate? Is real estate just selling properties? And what is it? I mean, I know about some real estate, I guess, but I'm not really someone who's knowledgeable of.
Yeah. So, there's a lot to it. So we'll go down the path that I do for real estate, but what I'll tell people is there's almost too many ways to make money in real estate. And what I mean by that is there's 15 different roads that you go down to buy real estate, you can buy real estate, you can sell real estate for people, you can wholesale real estate, you can invest in different types of assets. There's so many ways to make money in real estate. So you can't do it all in it. So you got to kind of pick that path. And, the path that we chose are apartments. You can do storage facilities, office spaces, like we're in one right now. Somebody owns this office space. Yeah. And
I rent it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, there's all these different avenues and ways to do it. But we chose apartments. And we chose apartments in two forms. Essentially one that my wife and I own 100%. To all the local stuff, we just own ourselves. And then we do larger apartment complexes that we we purchase with partners.
Yeah.
It's not all ourselves, and then we also raise money from investors. And give them a return on their money. So instead of putting your money into the stock market or something crazy like Bitcoin or all that crap, you can put money into an apartment complex. You own a piece of that asset, and then we will return money to you at a certain percentage, based upon our operations and all that. But our goal is to really
that's crazy. I did not know that there.
Yeah. Our goal is to double your money every 5 years. So if you give us, $50 or $100,000, today in, April of 2024, our goal is to return, if it's 50, 100, if it's 100, 200,000, in 5 years, and double your money every 5 years. And that's a much better return on investment than like a 401k is, much better than what the stock market is, and all. So that's what the bigger apartment.
This is real knowledge right here.
Yeah.
This is so. What is the bare minimum someone could give you for an investment?
On the apartment stuff, it's usually $25,000, and it depends on how big the apartment complex is.
Yeah.
So like the one we bought in Searcy, the minimum was 25. Just because when you're raising hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars, like you don't want to have to talk to 180 people to get there.
Oh yeah.
You need to talk to 40 instead.
Oh yeah.
So. On a larger deal, it may be like 50 to 100. It just really depends on the size of the property, how much money you need, to raise from people, and then.
That is really great to know, man. That is crazy. I just had no idea about that part of it, man. I mean, I knew there was investors and stuff, but like that's kind of cool how you could I don't know, just guarantee.
Yeah, it's not like it's some weird Ponzi scheme or anything like that. Like you own part of a real asset, something that has real value to it. Like Bitcoin, like you can't touch it, you can't feel it.
Yep.
A stock, like there used to be paper stocks, but they're really not there now. So in a stock market, you really don't. You own something kind of tangible, but not really. When people buy Apple stock, they really don't know what the hell they own.
Yeah.
All that they know is that they see it goes up in value kind of over time. In Bitcoin,
been there.
Yeah,
been there.
With like Bitcoin, people feel like they own something because it's cool and it's hip, but they have no clue what they're doing with it. It's some magical thing sitting on a cloud server somewhere.
It is, man. It's kind of
and our investors. We have a few from this area. That have driven by the apartment complex and be like, I own a piece of this. Like it's a real thing. There's real people living here. It generates real income. Your Bitcoin don't generate no income. And so it's a different way to invest. And I knew nothing about it 24 months ago, just to be clear.
For real? Oh, no. That's great. That's something great to be clear about.
Yeah, so I did not learn about it until August of 22.
So it wasn't the John fella that
no,
he's the one that drug you into entrepreneurship in a way.
He's the one that drug us into entrepreneurship and owning the smaller stuff locally. Because he owns some, owns some of that locally.
Well, you got to tell me about how you got drug in the real estate then. Ooh. Now, Jeff, I got to ask you. I feel like in my mic, I'm hearing a little echo on the mic. Do I sound good over there? Great. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. So, what happened was my wife and I went to the same bank for our first 11 doors. So we bought 2 single-family homes. We bought 2 duplexes. Then we bought another single-family home. Then we bought 2 more duplexes. So we ended up with 11 doors of units. And that was in May of 22. And I went to the bank to make the first payment on the brand new 4-unit complex that we just bought. And I walk into the bank, and the banker says, "Hey, come into my office. Let's chat." I'm like, "Okay." Him and I are good friends, talk all the time and all that. And he sits me down, and he goes, "I can't lend you any more money."
Dang.
And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, banks assess risk the same way everyone else does. When you loan your friend $1,000, and then another $1,000, and another $1,000, you start feeling like, okay, I'm loaning him too much money.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing with banks. They assess risk through the amount of money they lend to people, the different types of money, different types of assets they loan against. So whether it's people's houses, apartments, car washes, commercial, hospitals, whatever it is.
This is crazy.
They look at that and say, okay, like that bucket's too full. I can't loan any more from that bucket. That could be, a different type of assets. That can be different type of people. And, what I learned was at some point, when you start loaning millions of dollars over the course of time, at some point they look at you and say, okay, that's enough for now. And I was like, okay, I went to my wife and I go, well, now what the hell do we do?
That is crazy,
because,
man.
and my brain was not nearly, wasn't thinking.
It's crazy you found yourself not like literally asking yourself, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, and it didn't even come to my mind that I could just go walk into another bank, because I had this relationship with this guy that knew who I was, knew my wife, financed our, building a house. Like, he's done everything for us. He financed our first house, as well too, and our second. So like, this is the guy that did everything for us.
Yeah.
So I didn't have no other bank knew who Chris Moyer was, or, who Moyer Properties was. So I was like, well, shit, now what do we do? And what that banker told me was, hey, you need to check out this guy, Jonathan Russell. And he's a local guy in Jonesboro. He owns Premier Properties and Rentals.
Okay.
He's got a significant amount of doors. And he said, you need to listen to this podcast he was on. I was like, okay, sure. So my wife and I went to CMA Fest. And it was like 6 a.m, and I listened to this podcast, and I was just blown away by the guy who did the podcast, by Jonathan talking, and I just binged podcast after podcast, 4 hours to Nashville. And when I got back, I reached out to the guy who did the podcast. His name's Rod Cleef. And, I said, hey, what do you do? How do you do it? What's this? He talked about the program and all that stuff that he has and all that. It's a coaching program, mastermind, with a lot of great people from around the country. And my wife and I joined the program about 6 weeks later, and went to a boot camp that he hosts where, like, people come out to, at the time I was in Denver, and, you learn about apartments and all that, and that's where we learned about syndication, which is raising money from investors, and that's where we learned about it, was through that. So how I look at it is something that was extremely negative, or somebody could have gone home at that point and said, well, I guess that's it. We got 11 units for the rest of our lives, or we got 11 units till this guy wants to loan us money for another, in 3 years
until we get another handout.
Yeah, or and that's what we got. Instead of doing that, researched this, did that, jumped into another program, and then started learning, there's other ways to do this. And then that included, hey, dumbass, go out and talk to other banks, because that's kind of what he told us at that boot camp. He goes, you need to have 10 banks that you know. And I was like, I know one.
That's crazy, man.
The second we got home, I had lunch with like 5 different banks in the area. I had dinner with a couple. Now we know about a dozen or so bankers in the area. So.
I got to say something, Chris. I'm 27 years old. Okay, my generation's kind of on the dumber end of things. Sometimes they can be. You just said you had, like, how did you go about contacting these banks? Did you just pick up the phone? Hey, I need to talk to y'all. I need to talk to somebody. How'd that happen?
So Daniel. I started a relationship with Daniel just from a real estate agent.
Yeah.
He just, said, hey, talk to this guy or whatever. So then from Daniel, I called him and I said, hey, who else can I talk to? I just, and he was fine. He's like, he knew he couldn't loan me any more money, so he had to go somewhere else anyways. Yeah. And one thing I learned is they're all friends with each other. So, if you go to like a Rotary meeting or anything in town, there's like 14 banks there, and they're all friends with each other, and their wives went to school together.
This is crazy.
And they all know.
You're really putting me on a lot of game right now.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Well, they all know each other. So, he's like, hey, reach out to this guy, and this guy. I was like, okay. So then I reached out to them. And then I reached out to Jonathan, who lives in the area, and we had lunch. And I said, well, who else can I reach out to? And he gave me, reach out to this guy, and this gal. And before I knew it, we were having lunches every other week and dinners and just going out and meeting people. And then as opportunities came up to buy properties, I would give it to this guy, then this guy, then this guy, and this gal. And then all of a sudden, we had loans at 7 different banks versus 1 in a matter of a year. Just from building relationships and talking, and if
it's networking, man.
Yeah, if you've noticed, I like talking. So.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it, bro. I love it. Let me make sure it's not important. No. So that's very interesting. So when you go about say you and your wife, y'all drive by a property, y'all want it. How do you go about getting it?
If it's just a smaller property, we'll either call up the agent that has it listed. They all have their sign out front and all that. Or we'll call, one of the few people that we use to actually like help us facilitate the purchase. If we don't know the person or can't get a hold of them or whatever, and we'll look at it. We'll look at the numbers on how it works. We gotta be able to buy it, fix it up if it needs fixed up. Most of them we buy need fixed up quite a bit, and it's got to be able to produce income. So we got to be able to buy it, fix it up, and then rent it out. And the rent has got to be more than what it costs, for the mortgage to buy it, and then the taxes on it, and then a little bit of like a repair and maintenance and expense budget. To go along with that. So, there's tons of properties for sale. Most of them don't work as rentals. So you got
that's crazy, man.
You got to find you
gotta find them.
Yeah, you got to find them because a lot of them don't work. I mean, you think about it. If you can buy a house for, to where you pay $1,000 a month on the mortgage to the bank, and you can rent it out for $1,200, you're not gonna make any money.
Yeah.
So even though you own an asset, even though you might be paying down the mortgage on it to where you're creating some net worth in there, you're creating the difference between what you owe and what it's worth, and you're just not creating a cash flow, and
I could see it now in real estate, you could really end up getting yourself in a hole pretty quickly by accident.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, I mean, and people do. I mean, we bought foreclosed properties, we bought a lot of distressed properties, and you got to buy based off cash flow, and that's what our mentor Rod talks about is cash flow. Like, don't buy a property unless it cash flows. Like, don't just hope it appreciates and grows in value like everything did through 2020, 2022. You saw the housing market go bonkers and all that. A lot of apartment complexes went bonkers. Storage units went bonkers. But don't buy it just because it appreciates. Buy it because on its worst day, where the market crashes or anything like that, people are still paying you $1,000 a month to live there. And that's a big difference than hoping, and praying that the market goes up 20%. So that's really the key. And you're gonna have a hard time going wrong, with like a duplex that makes you $500 a month. It doesn't sound like a lot. But after all its expenses, after you pay everything, if it giving you $400 or $500 a month for that duplex, you're gonna sit happy, up front, and then you're gonna sit happy in 10 years from now too.
That's awesome, man. So, Chris, what are some of the horror stories, or you can even name one that has come from real estate?
Oh man, our first property.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. So. You definitely make mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes because as long as you learn from them. So that's one thing. I think people, sit on the sidelines in general and never do anything because they're too afraid to make a mistake. And it's okay to make mistakes.
I've been there, man.
So, when I started Moyer Properties with our first apartment our first apartment was just a single family home, just a couple blocks from here. We rented to a gal at the time. She was awesome. She seemed really nice and all that. COVID hit. She lost her job, which like a lot of people did. She ended up getting some income help. We ended up working through, just keeping her up to date. We did what we could to make sure we didn't evict her and all that good stuff. And there was eviction clauses in there. So we did what we can to work with her. But the one thing we didn't do is, we never went in a unit. So, we didn't do like 60-day or 6-month inspections. We didn't change air filters. We didn't spray for bugs. We just, it's our first unit. We have no freaking clue what we're doing. Let's see. So she was in there from December 30th of 2019 to January of 22. And she moved out in January 22, and I haven't been in the building since December 2019. And she said, I'm moving out, blah, blah, blah. She was probably behind on rent a month and all. And I walked in the door, and it was a freaking disaster. There were holes in the floor. There was mold growing behind the dishwasher.
Giving me goosebumps.
There were, there was multiple holes in the floor. The flooring was trash. There was holes in the wall. There was mold behind the dishwasher. It was a $17,000 repair to put in new flooring foundation. And what happened is the dishwasher. Jeff's seen the pictures. I'm pretty sure.
Gosh, I'll be sick.
So, what happened is the dishwasher had a leak, and she never caught it and never told us. And that leak over time dry rot out the sub foundation of the house.
My gosh,
then,
something so small that could have just been fixed.
Yeah. So, and Jeff knows this now. What we do is we go into every unit every 60 days. We check for leaks. We make sure there's no major leaks around or anything like that, and we replace air filters. And what that does is it gets our eyes on the property every 60 days. That way, even if there's no leaks, and even if, the air filters just need to change every 60 days, just keep them healthy. But, even if there's no leaks, it still, keeps the tenant honest.
Yeah, it lets them know that you're going to be by.
Yeah. I mean, let everyone watching this, when somebody comes over your house, and you got shit laying everywhere, you pick it up before somebody walks in.
Yeah, facts.
Yeah,
facts.
It's kind of the same thing, to where when we let them know we're coming over, I guarantee they're all scrambling. Oh shit, the landlord's coming over. Let's clean up and all this and that. So that's definitely happening, but that's good.
Yeah,
that's good, and that means they care. If we ever walk into a place that's a complete disaster, that means people just stop caring.
Yeah, dude.
And then it's time to move on to somewhere else. But the big mistake, going back to that whole story, the big mistake was not keeping your eyes on a property. You know, you got to go into property, and I don't want to be, obnoxious to our renters. I was a renter for a long time in my life. So I don't want to bother people. We're in and out in 3 minutes, maybe. We're in and out super quick. We're just making sure there's no leaks anywhere, changing the air filter, we're in and out. But just that 3 minutes has saved us thousands of dollars. And so it's
amazing, man. It's the small stuff, man. It's a
super small thing, and it sounds like common sense, but what I will tell you is that most small landlords are not doing it.
Oh man.
Yeah, they're just not doing it. So when you get into it, you just gotta keep your eyes on that stuff, and people can trick you. People are funny. People lie really well nowadays.
Yeah.
So you just gotta keep your eyes on it. It's okay to be wrong. I made a mistake with our first renter.
Yeah.
Our first one. We screwed up, and we don't make these great decisions every single time. People trick you. People lose a job out of nowhere. You just never know what's gonna happen. So it's okay to have those, but that was a big one that cost us a bunch of money.
Well, that's awesome, Chris. That's awesome. Hey, I appreciate you coming by today, talking to me, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything else that you would like? This is the first interview like this that we've did. This is like probably the most professional interview I've did. So is there anything else you would like to tell the people here at Low Life TV?
Man, so what I tell everyone is you got to get around people that are doing things that you want to do. So if you want to do more podcasts, you got to have somebody that you look up to that does podcasts. If you're in real estate like I am, you have to look up the people who are doing bigger, better deals than you're doing in real estate. That's why I have a mentor, Rod. I look up to Jonathan because he's got way more units in the area than us. And you got to get around those people, because when you get around people, it inspires you and it brings something out of you that's not in you. And so, and that doesn't mean you have to pay for it. You can get around people and work for them. You can get around people and take them to lunch. Like if anyone in Northeast Arkansas said, hey, I want to go to lunch and talk about real estate, I would be there like tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what you did for me.
Yeah,
I just wanted to talk.
That's how most people are, and most of the people who are entrepreneurs are like that, because we know that we got to get around other people and we want to spread knowledge and spread wealth and make everyone happy. So, get around somebody, pick up the phone and go talk to that person that has been inspiring you that you've decided not to talk to. That you thought like, well, they won't talk to me and all that. Likely they'll talk to you. Like our mentor is probably worth a couple $100 million, and I have his cell phone number. And if I ever had a problem, I could call him up and talk to them, and that's freaking unbelievable.
And it would make me a little nervous to think that I would be able to talk to him. You know, I could see where people would be nervous.
And you know, we paid some money to get into that program and all that. You know, you kind of pay your way for something like that, but. You know, like I think about the me as a local person, Jonathan as a local person. There's a bunch of real estate agents. There's a bunch of other business people in town. You know, that it would take nothing to pick up the phone or go to their business and say, hey, you know, I want to learn how you're doing it. 95% of them will say yes. Only 5% will say no. You know, so get around those people, ask questions, and just being around them will make you a better person.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for coming by and talking to us.
Yeah,
man. I really enjoyed it, man. It was great.
No, this was awesome. This is my first one on camera. You know, I've done a few other podcasts here and there over, you know, over like Zoom and all that. But first in-person one with the headset on and all that.
Man.
So,
Heck yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
We're glad, but I'm going to shake your hand. Yeah. That's Low Life TV, and we're out, man.